Welcome, everybody, to the Teaching and Learning Conference. I have the great pleasure of moderating this room for somebody who is a true friend and colleague in every sense of those two words, Brett Moulding. During the session, we'll talk about how we can further engage students in the course of discourse in their science discovery and investigation. And so with that, please welcome Brett Moulding.
Well, good morning. I'm Brett Moulding. It's nice to be here today. We're going to have a kind of a fun little overview. I'm going to engage you in a little bit of an investigation. I'm going to talk about this approach to instruction called Gather, Reason, Communicate. And I'm going to talk about the research that I've been engaged in recently on using science investigations to motivate students to read, write, and engage in discourse. And so we'll just get started with it. Andre said that if you have any questions, just raise your little electronic hand and we will, we'll add to the conversation by adding your questions and try and answer them within the context. The session says that we'll also share with you 40 to 60 lessons that have been developed using this approach to instruction. I'll share that website with you. They're all free to you. Everything that we have on that website is free. The lessons are all aligned to the next generation science standards, and they're all investigations. There's none of the lessons that are not an investigation where kids are doing hands-on scientific investigation. And so we'll share that as well. As I say always in my science presentations, I'm not here to tell you how to teach. You're a professional educator. What I'm here to do is to share with you the current research in how children learn and talk about this approach to instruction and invite you, hopefully inspire you to use some of these GRC lessons to engage students in science investigation. The lessons that we'll be talking about are, in fact, have readings associated with them that are exactly aligned to the investigation. They all have hands-on portions to the investigation, and I think you'll find them useful. And I'll try and give you kind of an insights in how to use these resources as well as engage you in this. The tiny URL that's here in the PowerPoint link, it's a tinyurl.com/NVGRC 2022. If you want to have the PowerPoint, we would ask you to do that. There's also links in it. So as we engage in this investigation, we're going to ask you to kind of work in small groups and investigate some leaves today. And you can see the leaves out on the table there. So we're going to do that actual initial gathering portion of this investigation. Rather than telling you about it, I'm going to try to model it for you today. So that link will be important for you to have. Take a picture of it with your phone right now, or if you've already copied it and put it into your browser, you'll have that throughout the session today. Any questions about that? Great. I have this slide here. It says professional development and professional learning. We're at a conference and it's an hour, 50 minutes actually, that I'm going to spend with you. It'll be very difficult for me to call this professional development and definitely not professional learning. But we're going to try and inspire you to do some professional development and engage in this as you learn yourselves. Professional development is what we do. We deliver professional development, you receive it. But until you apply it in your classroom, it's only professional development. It's not professional learning. And the goal is to get you to try these things out. Your job as an educator is really to motivate your students to learn. Some people say, well, my job is to teach science. It's not to teach science, it's to motivate students to learn science. And so as we're going through this, I'm going to try and motivate you to try some of these lessons with your students, because you try them and they work, you'll use them forever. You'll be hooked. And that's what we're really after, is getting you hooked on this idea of using scientific investigation to engage kids in reading, writing, and discourse. Some important ideas, I'll talk about these throughout the day. Science investigation in our classroom should look like science investigation in the real world. scientists go about making sense of this world in which they live. And so they see phenomena in the world, and then they try to make sense of that phenomenon. They go out and design experiments, they collect data, they make observations. They read about these phenomena, and they're trying to make sense. We want our science to look the same way. We want our kids to be making sense of phenomena. And they're using three-dimensional performances to engage in investigations. And part of that is the reading, discourse, and writing they do while in your classroom. Science is a way of knowing, and it's based on evidence. So one of the things we hope we can do in these investigations is get kids to collect data and information to use to make sense of the world in which they live. We're going to talk about the GRC instructional sequences: gather information and data, reason explanations, and then communicate that reasoning. All of these lessons are GRC lessons on the website, and we'll share that link with you later. The things we'll talk about today and the lessons were built on research. This is the body of research that we use. It's both about literacy for science as well as three-dimensional science performances. But this is the body of knowledge that we'll use throughout the day today. The NGSS and states with this approach to instruction have three-dimensional student center. Nevada is very fortunate. They've got the NGSS more closely aligned to their standards than any state I know. And there's three dimensions. It's important for us to note that the practices are really the new verbs. You know, we used to have verbs like identify, describe, explain. The verbs have been changed. The verbs are now construct explanations, develop models, analyze data. So the practices are the verbs. And as you're assessing students, these are the verbs you use in their assessments. You don't ask what questions, you ask construct an explanation for the causes of a phenomenon. Cross-cutting concepts focus students on specific aspects of phenomena, and core ideas are the things that we use to make sense of phenomena. So if I see water condensing on my glass here, if I don't know the core idea about phase changes, gases turning into a liquid, it's a mystery to me. There's no way for me to make sense of that phenomenon. So we have to have a set of core ideas, and they're learned within the investigations. They're not an add-on. They're not something we learn up front and then use, but they're learned within the investigation. So we like to start with engaging them in those investigations. So the cross-cutting concepts focus students' concepts, and the core ideas are the things that they use to make sense of the phenomena. The practices, we use an instructional sequence called gather, reason, communicate, and the lessons I'm going to share with you all have those. This is the general idea: gather, reason, communicate, reasoning. So the practices are ordered how students use them. Some of the practices students use to gather information, data: developing questions, planning, carrying out investigations, obtaining information. Those things are about gathering. Then the ones for reasoning: constructing explanations, developing arguments, developing models. Then finally, communicating that reasoning. And we use models, explanations, and arguments to communicate. At the elementary level, it looks more like this, because they're all tied closely to the language arts skills. People talk about mathematics and science. The reality of it is science is very closely linked to language arts, because we're reading to obtain information in science, we're speaking to discuss and reason explanations, and we write a lot in science. So when we're gathering information and data, we are using reading, listening, and observing to gather it. When we're reasoning, we're using discourse and writing to reason how evidence supports an explanation. And when students are communicating, they're using writing, speaking, and models to communicate their reasoning. So language arts is an important part of science, and it's central to this gather, reason, communicate approach to teaching and learning science. The cross-cutting concepts focus on specific aspects of phenomena. There are 7 of these. We've organized them slightly different because there's really 3 areas. There's the ones that are about causality, and in science, everything has a cause. If it doesn't have a cause, we don't study it in science. So things about causality are in terms of structure and function, cause and effect. When we look at this phenomena, all phenomena occur in systems. And so there's energy and matter, stability and change, scale, proportion, and quantity that help us focus students on specific aspects of that phenomena in that system. And then finally, patterns. In science, we're looking for patterns to use as evidence to support our explanations. So this is how we use these. We simplify them a little bit, both for instruction, but also for students conceptualizing their understanding of these things. Rather than having 7 of them listed, we have 3 main ones, and then they break apart. The core ideas are used differently than they have in the past. Students use them to make sense of phenomena, like we mentioned on the bottle here. We'll look at some core ideas later when you're doing an investigation, and they are used to support their explanations. So that's a quick overview. Let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually do an investigation today. I'm going to encourage you to engage in this. We would like to look at some leaves. That gentleman, I did some PD in Hawaii, and this gentleman sitting there pointing at the one leaf in his left hand said, "That's not a leaf." And he's pointing to the one on his right hand his partner has, saying, "Now that's a leaf." Okay, that's an old Crocodile Dundee joke, and none of you know that movie because they're not old enough. So anyway, so we're going to investigate leaves. And so we're going to ask you to engage in this as if it's as you, not as someone else, but as you. I want you to do this investigation. I want you to think through it like a student might think through an investigation. So let's get engaged. So to begin with, we're going to kind of go outside and gather 2 leaves from each of 5 different plants. So I just want you to go outside and gather 2 leaves, be quick about it. Then I want you to come back in and make careful observations of the leaves and look for patterns across the species. What patterns you see across all 5 of the different types of leaves you find. And I was hoping it'd be warmer than I heard, but I have leaves out in my yard, and the temperature out here is 22 degrees in northern Utah. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to go out and find some leaves on plants, evergreens, and what have you, and bring them in. Look for some leaves on weeds. They're still alive, some hollies or ivies and things of that nature. So go outside and collect some leaves. When you come back in, make a careful list. Now, let me show you this link here. So let's jump up to this link. So there's a link there. Here, and it looks like this. When you click on that link on the PowerPoint that you have, you'll jump to this Leaf Investigation 3.5 list of patterns. And so just put your names. We'll have 3 people in a group. We'll have 2 groups, 1, 2, 3. So we'll have 2 people in 2 groups. So let's have 1 group of 3, 2 groups of 3, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have 7 of you. So we'll have 3 groups. Just drop your name when you get back into one of these, and you're in a group with whomever signs up on the same sheet that you're on. And we'll actually put in here the patterns you observe across the leaf. So any questions before we move on? Chris Jenkins, do you have any questions?
I'm good.
I know you're good, but do you have any questions?
No, I'm great. I was just looking for the link and I found it. So now I'm going to type my name into it.
Actually, I see we have 2 people in there already. And when you get back from going out and collecting, so you want 5 different species. If you can find 3 or 4 is fine too. But you want 2 leaves from each one. Bring them back in, put them on the table, and look at them. We have about 5 or 10 minutes to do this. So let's get started. Any questions? Okay, we'll see you in 5 minutes. You'll get your leaves. Don't pick them off your house plants. I saw you looking at your house plant. Don't do that. Go outside and get some. You can use house plants if you need to, if they need to be trimmed. Okay. Set a timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
Lanina, Cook, get out and get those leaves. We want you involved.
Mr. Molding,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I wrote in the chat that I'm in a townhouse and there is a park nearby, but it's gonna take me more than 5 minutes to walk there and back.
Okay, then don't go there. Just stay here.
Okay.
And
I'm
look
in the
for a
same
house.
boat.
Yeah,
I don't no worries. I'm in the same boat because I just looked out my window. So I'm visiting my mom, and they have there's a very tight covenant here where there's literally no leaves on the ground, even though it is fall in Southern California. So I feel
well, but I don't want them dead leaves. I want them off the trees. Pull them off the trees.
Oh, you want to stay? Are you
Yeah,
gonna pick them? Okay.
I want leaves. I don't want dead leaves. I want real leaves.
Well, I would have to like climb a tree because
Andre,
it's like,
you are such a poop.
well, as room moderator, I'm gonna hold down the fort and make sure
Yeah,
that
you
I
hold the fort down. You hold the fort down.
but I would you would have had me climbing a tree, Brett, in order to
I have no problem with seeing you climbing a tree.
I bet you do, but my dependents and life insurance my premiums might go up if they hear that I'm climbing trees on a Saturday morning. Lenina, were you able to access the link? Try, can you copy and paste it and just drop it that way as opposed to clicking directly into it? That might, sometimes tiny URLs can be tricky.
I'm back with my leaves, but where am I supposed to go now?
Oh, you're fine.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. So were you able to access the oh, okay. So can you I'm troubleshooting some issues with the link. Can you select and copy the tiny URL that way from within the chat?
for this one,
For this one, yeah.
um,
For that for the one that that Brett, hang on a second. Let me go back and find it.
I just got back with my leaves too, and I was like, okay, am I supposed to be going into a different room or what are we doing?
No. You're good.
I wrote down the link, but I'm not seeing anywhere that I can actually find that tiny URL and be able to click on it.
All right. Let me see. Brett, are you within earshot?
Yeah,
Could
I just
you,
got back. I went out and got my leaves.
Awesome.
I never do
Mine are all
ask teachers
dead.
to do something that I'm not willing to do. The roses were all still green. And the raspberries were all still green. And this little wild rose was still green. And this flower, that's a fall flower, I can't remember what my wife calls them, but I buy them at the grocery store and she plants them outside. And then when she gets tired of them, she kills them. So
Hey, Brett, could you drop the tiny URL into the chat, or you could send it to me and I can
for this document.
Yeah.
There's not a tiny URL for this document, but I'll drop in the actual link in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first 5 minutes. We're back. We're looking for patterns now. We have 5 more minutes that we're going to write patterns there. So I want you to write patterns that you observe. I see that this first group with Chris and and Victoria and are going to town. And the second group hasn't started yet, but let me get that link in the chat as soon as I can get back. Where am I at?
And which group are we supposed to?
Any of the first three groups. You can just jump in any of the first three groups. Andre, do you have the PowerPoint?
I do not.
Okay. I'm trying to get back to the here, let's see. Let's see if I can get in here. Chat. I can't seem to get into the chat. I apologize why I can't get in the chat. I have no idea.
So do I just pick a number to go into a room?
Yeah.
Or do you put us in the room?
No, you jump in, find your own room. I'm good.
Okay, so.
Where are the numbers to go into a room?
Are you on that? Do you have the PowerPoint?
I don't.
Okay. So let me go back and give you the tiny URL. Am I sharing my screen right now?
Is the PowerPoint that tiny URL? Because I wrote that down.
Yes, this is the tiny URL right here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, and I wrote that down. So do I need to go into that? Because I
Go into
can't
that.
click on it here.
Yeah, you go into that and then you can come down to this page here where we're working, and that will give you the link. Andre, I cannot seem to get into the chat.
So why don't we do this? Oh, you can't get into our chat here?
I'm not getting into it to put that link in there. Can you get, did you get
So what, let's see. So why don't you send me the presentation and then I can drop it there and then I
hey,
can
you see the
troubleshoot.
can you see the tiny URL right here?
Yes.
That's the presentation right there, that tiny URL.
All right.
So I'm in the PowerPoint now.
Okay, if you're in the PowerPoint, come to this slide right here that we're on. Can you
Yeah,
see
I
the
gotta go
green
back
slide?
and look at what you're looking at here.
Can you see what I'm looking at?
The breakouts one.
Yeah. So if you come to this slide, if you got the PowerPoint open, you should be able to open the document.
Okay, I'm in the breakouts one.
Where it says make careful observations, it's there or it's in the notes. So at the bottom of the slide, there's also some notes down here.
Oh, the Google Docs one.
Yeah. Yeah, either one of those will take you to the same place.
So am I supposed to be in a different room than what?
No,
I'm
we're
in
all in
now?
the same, we're all in the same room. We're
Oh,
all in the
okay.
same room.
All right. So now you in the chat, Brett. So the that same drop down.
I just put this link into the chat.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
That's for this page. So let's go to that page. See what people are saying. So let's talk about this a little bit. So the first group, group A, tell me a little bit, just tell me about the first one that you saw. What are you saying here? Chris or Victoria, talk to us a little bit about what you observed. What patterns did you see?
Okay, most of my leaves.
One,
Okay, most of all of my leaves have a central kind of line down the center of the leaf for symmetry, right?
Okay.
And then all
Okay,
of them
that's one.
have-
Let's go to the next group. Let's go to
Okay.
the Lenina. What did you have, Lenina? Or Tamara? Or Tammy? Either one of the three. Tamitha. Is that how you say that, Tamitha? The second group B, what pattern did you observe?
Tamitha is my name. Okay, so I'm just
Tamitha.
because I had a hard time getting onto the link, I'll just tell you. So the
Yeah, me
first
too.
one I have, it was a maple leaf. And it
Okay.
had 3 different areas coming out. All of mine are dead because I have snow in my whole backyard.
So-
And
Tamitha, let me
Yes.
ask, I'm just want you to tell you now, we're asking for patterns. A pattern is something that's
oh, a
similar
pattern. Okay,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
across all three. So how many, if you pick 3 leaves or 5, what is
Okay,
common about all those leaves?
they all have a very thick thick stem, all of them. They have a
Okay.
thick stem, and they
That's a
all have like
pattern.
a central, like this one, a central line going all the way down.
Yeah,
And even with the maple leaf, it does, and then it comes off and goes off on different areas.
okay, great. Now that's a pattern. I like that. The other group, will you give us something you've observed? Lenina or oh, that's that same group. What group am I after now? I'm after the third group. Nope, we don't have third group. So let's go back to the first group and let's ask Victoria. Victoria, what patterns did you observe? Pick one of yours and tell us about it.
Okay, I got these two. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
But one is really smooth and one's like gritty and bumpy.
On the surface of it here, not
Correct.
on the edge.
Not on the edge, on the surface itself. This one's really gritty and bumpy, and this one's just really smooth.
Is it gritty and bumpy or hairy?
I can't see any hairs. It just feels, I don't,
You have
It's
you
like
have
little
you have a phone?
yeah, I was trying to figure out how to do it, but
Take a picture of it and then blow it up.
I can't get from my phone to,
You don't need to get your phone. You're the only one. It
oh,
matters.
you mean blow it up just so I can see it? I
Yeah,
don't think it has hairs. It feels like it's got little notches. Okay, just a minute. Let me get.
I just took a picture. Okay, so the one that I got is hairy. I didn't notice that there was hairs, but then when I take a picture of them, blow it up so it's really big, I can see hairs on there.
No, I can't see any hairs. I just see like little
Okay, so-
pokies.
So my leaf and your leaf are bumpy. That's a pattern, but they're not bumpy for the same reason. Yours are just bumpity bumps, and mine are hairy leaves.
It feels like it's got little hooks on it, like almost like Velcro.
That sounds like hairs to me.
I can't see the hairs, but okay. Even on my picture, I can't see it.
Well, we need to obviously get a big magnifying glass, don't we?
Yes.
Definitely. Very good. I appreciate that, Victoria.
So Linnea, you want to give voice to what you put into the chat? You're on mute.
Who'd you call on, Andre?
Linnea, but I think she's having some, I
Nina?
can see your lips moving, but we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
There we go. Sorry about that. I have like a pointed edge on each of my leaves. And I also noticed that the upper surface is more textured than the undersurface of the leaf. The undersurface is much, much smoother and it looks waxier.
Is that true for all the leaves that you have?
For 2 of the leaves that I have.
Okay, so this pattern will be conditional pattern. Two of the leaves have a smooth top and bumpy bottom, or one where they're smooth bottom, bumpy top. I can't remember what he said. And the others don't, because you can do that in pattern. One thing I noticed, did you notice anything about smell or taste or feel? You've done a lot on feel. Anything about taste or smell? What, you haven't tasted them yet? Victoria, good gravy. Have you smelled them?
You can't put anything in your mouth in science class. That's a no-no.
Exactly.
Well, I beg to differ, but yeah, you won't have to put it in your mouth. I can smell a little bit, but they're not very aromatic. Yeah.
The one that's scratchy smells stronger of I don't know what's the leaf smell.
Uh-huh.
It
Have
smells
you
like
tried squishing it a little bit and see if you get more smell out of it? Have you rubbed it on paper to see if you can write with it on paper? So we got a lot to investigate in this investigation.
What I noticed on mine is 3 of my leaves are still green,
Uh-huh.
but then 2 leaves, one has turned red. This is from my fire bush. And then one of the other ones is dead and brown. The dead brown one actually has more of a scent than my green ones do,
Isn't that
which
interesting?
surprised me.
That surprises me too, but I
I
like
thought
it.
the green ones would have more scent, but the brown one I can actually has more of, I don't know, I guess that fall smell. I can it actually has a scent. The green ones have no scent at all.
That's very interesting. I like that you have started doing closer investigations. So what questions would help us investigate this? I noticed that one of the groups, I believe it's has some questions they've written there. Will you kind of talk about those questions you have to help us investigate this phenomenon? Group A has question. Group A, read one of your questions and tell us how that'll help you investigate there.
So I wrote, hold on, I'm trying to, okay, so would different leaf patterns be necessary based on water requirements? So like I live in Las Vegas, and so in my yard I have a combination of different types of plants that I know have different water requirements, and I can see like some that are more desert type plants don't have as many veins, like, you know, the offshoots from the center as the ones that do, like, say, like a rose bush. So like my rose bushes would require more water, and I know those require more water than, say, my desert plants in the backyard.
That's a very good question. And we could investigate that a couple of ways. We could maybe go someplace that has tropical plants or plants that get lots of water, and then go out and examine the plants in the desert, the native plants in the desert. That would be a good question to investigate through experimentation, or we could also obtain information through reading. But having a question going into obtaining information is an important part of reading comprehension. And that's one of the things we want to talk about is how do we get kids interested in reading more? And the research tells us that engaging kids on hands-on investigation is really the way to get them to increase reading comprehension, because they care about the reading. They actually do the reading and they're motivated to read. I'm going to jump back to our PowerPoint and talk a little bit about this investigation and where it would go from there. So we're not going to get a chance to do the whole investigation, but this would be how we would initiate any of the GRC investigation, where we have some sort of hands-on exploration of the phenomena that we're looking at. And then we would select the phenomena. In this case here, we would investigate the veins. So phenomenon, leaves have veins you can see and feel. And so that would be the direction we go. This instructional sequence helps direct the kids from their many choices to narrow it down to 1 or 2 questions about the veins. And I saw one of the questions was in fact about the veins. And so we have the kids develop questions, not ask questions. There's a difference. We develop questions for an investigation. We ask questions off the top of our head, but we develop questions by having a class discussion. So this is what, are you seeing my slide there? Thanks. Thank you. So we would start by doing 1 and 2 of the exploration portion of this investigation. We'd go to a class discussion, and then we would go obtain information from reliable sources, or we'd run an experiment, depending on the nature of this. The questions that were answered about the veins, what is the structure and function of those veins? How do they function in the plant? That's a way for us to get to the standard 4th grade 4LS1-1, which is about structure and function. And we would go to an exact reading. And so this is the reading that that lesson plan has available for you. And so it's an exact reading. It's about structure and function and how that structure of the leaves provides the water to the plant, but also holds it open so it can obtain sunlight. So this reading is an exact reading. All of the GRC lessons or elementary have it reading that are exactly aligned to the investigation. They're not out in left field someplace. It's not chapter in a book. It is exactly to the investigation. And then we would go, the investigation would then move on to an individual performance, which is writing an argument. And we like to provide the students with a rubric for that argument. We don't just simply send them out to do an argument. We have constructed the explanation as a group. We have developed the outlines of evidence, and then we develop the argument from that. And this argument comes at the end of a series of student performances. The explanation, developing a model, all of those things are part that lead into this. One of the most important parts that lead into this is, in fact, the class discussion that comes right here in the series. After 5 and before 6, we have a class discussion. That part of the lesson comes based on them having read about this, having collected the leaves, and have had a class discussion about patterns. This is the standard that this lesson is aligned to. And it's something that has very inexpensive materials. We would give the kids each a magnifying glass, because when you look at the veins, and interesting, someone mentioned that the veins, you can't see them as well on the desert plants. They're smaller on desert plants. And with a magnifying glass, you can see that the veins go everywhere, not just the big ones. There are veins everywhere because they have to go to every part of the plant, because every part of the plant needs water and every part of the plant produces sugar. And this is the standard alignment. So if we wanted to go to the GRC website, if you're looking at the PowerPoint now and you click on that link there, it jumps you to this page right here, which is called Teaching Science. It's Phenomenal GRC Lessons. And if I go up here to elementary at the top, can you see that link I'm aiming at now? Are you seeing the Phenomenal GRC? Chris, I can see you. Okay, thanks, Tamitha. Is it Tamitha? Yes. You're muted, so whatever you said, I think I must have said it right.
Yes.
So
you
I'm going to
did.
go up here.
Tamitha.
Click.
Thank you.
So I click on and go to the lessons. They're kindergarten through 5th grade for the elementary lessons. When I click on this 4th grade, I go there. Now that 4th grade page, we find this lesson along with a lot of other lessons that are in fact the same type. And so I can go down here, and this lesson is You're So Vain. There's lessons for each and every standard in the Next Generation Science Standards: life, earth, physical, and each line is a lesson that is, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 lessons for that first standard, and you can choose whichever one you want. I like this one right here called You're So Vain. And so I'm going to click on it. And then you go to that, and this is what the lessons look like. They provide you with what standard the lesson is aligned to. And this was written by a teacher in Hawaii. So they're looking at what standard it's aligned to, the lesson performances that are critical. Then instructions, and these are details, the teaching suggestions of what you do as a teacher. And you go through the gather part of it. If it's in italics, it's hints for the teacher, teaching suggestion. If it's numbered, it's what students do. All the practices are in blue, the cross-cutting concept in green. You have the kids reason explanations, hear questions to conduct your class discussion. Then you communicate reason, which in this case is a writing activity. This is the rubric for the assessment. For that last writing activity, number 7 becomes the rubric. The assessment, the formative assessment. And there's the rubric for that. These are the featured practices, cross-cutting concept, and core ideas. These are the 2 slides that you would use to guide the kids through the investigation. And they just go step by step through the investigation. So in pairs, you're having kids working in pairs, and you regroup them, bring them down, go through the rest of the investigation. They suggest you use one line at a time. Here's the reading that you saw. Plant leaves have veins. That's a reading. It's provided there. And in 4th grade, they have the kids reading it. There's your scaffold for the assessment. And there's acting on evidence once the kids have completed the lesson. If they're not successful, what do you do next? So that's a typical lesson. It's on the 4th grade site. There's a whole set of them there. I see only one person's in there with me, but I would encourage you to use that link and go to that page. So let's go back to PowerPoint. Typically, when we engage kids in investigations, they're in a unit of instruction. And the teachers who I've talked to, one of the teachers said, what I do is Ursel vein first on structure and function, then I look at structure and function of roots, because that's another structure and function. And it has 2 functions. Roots have 2 functions. 1, bringing water to the plants, and 2, holding the plant in the ground so it doesn't get blown away. And so they would come in a series, and then you have a reading performance about prickly pear cactus, for example, that you would have the kids read about that. And then the students would apply what they know about structure and function to respond to that. So our lessons are all built like that, but like on this particular one, I think there's 9 lessons. You can choose which 2 you want. This is just one teacher's choice, was the Ursel vein and roots, which is a good choice. But you could have picked other choices as well. Instead of looking at plant structure and function, you might want to look at animal structure and function, and there's lessons for that as well. Again, we're gathering information and data. That's where we initiate this from. But we have to engage the student in phenomena first. Find something that's relevant and close to their lives. Something in their yard or outside their condominium, like leaves, grass, cracks in sidewalk. The food they eat, their refrigerator, mold and mildew growing in the refrigerator, mushrooms, whatever you find as a phenomenon. These lessons are stacked with those things. You engage the students in the phenomena, then you gather information and data through hands-on investigation and also by reading. You have students reason explanations, and then ask for a class discussion. The teacher's role is to synthesize the students' ideas into an accurate and consistent idea, concept, and then communicate that through writing, models, or through speaking. And finally, we hope that kids will engage in making sense of the world beyond their classroom afterwards. We want kids applying it beyond the classroom. Our job isn't to teach in the classroom. Our job is to teach students how to learn so they apply it beyond the classroom. And so we'll encourage them to do things, the lessons, many of them give it those things. We use science investigations to motivate students to read, engage in discourse, and to write. If they're curious about something, that can be used to motivate kids. And so our job as teachers is to get them curious and work on intrinsic rewards, not extrinsic rewards. Intrinsic rewards are like our curiosity or our wondering. And our job as teachers is to help them understand intrinsically that science is fun and interesting, and it lets us make sense of our world. Science performances will help kids make sense of the world. So that we introduce the phenomenon, their job is to make sense of the world in which they live by making sense of this phenomenon. We just talked about that. Reading is central to science practices. One of the things I talk to teachers a lot about, and I encourage you to think about, is we want them to observe first. Students obtain information by reading after they've made the context connection. Academic language can be introduced within the context, it's not front-loaded. Core ideas can be provided as part of before the reasoning in a reading. Reading comprehension is enhanced when science enter a reading with a question, with a context, and a reason for reading. Academic discourse is central. Your job as a teacher is to synthesize students' ideas into an accurate, complete explanation. But your job is to synthesize, and your job is not to tell. And that happens in classroom discourse. It happens after students have done hands-on investigation, read, and then the classroom discourse gives you that chance for them to add accurate information. And writing is central to them making sense of the world in which they live. When they write their ideas, it helps them and others understand what the student understands. Investigations can motivate students to engage in meaningful writing. We want them to write, and it's a challenge, but if they're writing about something they're interested in, they're more likely to write and to bring information from their reading into that writing. And so we believe that this idea of reading, discourse, and writing are central to science learning, not just to the activity. And here's some ideas and things that we put here. Teachers can use curiosity to motivate students to learn. That's just a summary of what we've just talked about. Hands-on investigation can motivate students. Discourse creates opportunities for students to reason. Let's see. And if you're interested, this is the book. And I don't know if I don't want to sell this book for you. I just want you to be aware that this is the book that this stuff is based on. It was written and published in June. It's available if you're interested. And we have a discount on it for you. Shipping's included, and it's at $25 a book if you're interested. You'll need to get a PowerPoint. And if you're interested in that, because we're not going to talk about it anymore, this is how you go about ordering the book. But I would encourage you, if you want to put discourse into your classroom, have motivation for reading. This book talks about the whole process of GRC and how to do it. And this page is kind of important because it has my email. And it gives us the time to talk a little bit about your ideas and things that you do to motivate your students to read and write and engage in discourse in your classroom. So if you have other questions, you can email me. Well, Andre, do we have 5-10 minutes left?
Yes, about that. And I was just looking at the chat, a lot of comments about the usefulness of these resources and people's plan to share it with their departments and colleagues, which we highly encourage. So go ahead.
Going 3D with GRC website is totally free to teachers. Anything on there, the book is published, a hard copy, so it you'll have to pay for that. But it really explains all of the things there, plus focuses on reading, writing, and discourse. So chapter 1 is about why we teach science. Chapter 2 is about gather, read, communicate. Chapter 3 is about reading. Chapter 4 is about writing. Discourse. Chapter 5 is about writing. The last chapter is on chapter to engaging diverse learners in science learning. And it was written with one of the co-authors, a teacher from Hawaii that uses culture and place within her instruction. So it's a very nice chapter. So that's that. So anyone want to add any comments or thoughts?
There was
I actually
a
have
question
this elementary book. I got that before I decided to switch from teaching elementary to middle school. So I have the elementary one and it's fantastic. And now I need to get the secondary one. So
We've got them at just for Nevada only, because I'm not here today. That you can get them for $25, including shipping. It's usually
Nice.
$35. So I encourage you to do it, but I don't want to sell the book to you. I just want you, if you're interested. But the website is what I want you to use. I want you to go find a lesson there, try it with your kids. If you read the book, you have more details on it, but you can do it with just the website. But there's a lesson for every standard you teach. Andre, what time do we start the next session?
So 10:20 is the next start. We still have we have about 4 minutes left in this session.
Okay.
For any questions, comments. So there was a question in regards to resources. This information should be available through the conference page in Canvas. Please contact us if you don't have access to that or need access to that. You contact Jenny Malorney, where you should have her contact information. But Brett, thank you very much. Let me drop the survey into the chat. Please complete that. I know that you're going to be for each session. There is the session survey. We always have to gather that data, right? Please complete the session survey into the chat that I just dropped into the chat. And Brett, thank you very much.
And thank all of you for joining us. I have to apologize. This was a really short session for me. I'm used to 2 days, and covering as much as I did, it really made it so it felt